Hi Creation Kids, so glad you could join me today for our Bible lesson on the parable of the Vineyard Workers from Matthew chapter 20. Back in the days when Jesus was here on earth, the religious leaders who listened to him and watched him had some problems with some of the things he was teaching. See, Jesus taught that being right in his eyes took faith. Faith is believing something with all of your heart and not by working, so that you couldn't earn your way to be good enough to get into heaven. So when Jesus told this parable, what's a parable? A parable is a story with a very important kingdom message. So when Jesus told this parable, it was so we could be very clear about how someone enters into God's kingdom. And he taught that it was not by merit or reward for our hard, good work, but it was by his grace, his goodness, and his generosity. Let's watch.
One day, Jesus told a story about some men who worked in a vineyard. A vineyard is like a farm where grapes grow. Jesus said, "This is what God's kingdom is like. A man owned a vineyard, and he needed some people to work for him. So he went out early in the morning to find some workers. He told the workers that he would pay them 1 silver coin. So the workers went to work in the man's vineyard. A few hours later, the landowner went to find more workers. He told the men, 'You can work in my vineyard, and I will pay you what is right.' So these men went to the vineyard to work. The man who owned the vineyard went out 3 more times that day to find workers. Each time, he found more men to work in his vineyard, and he agreed to pay them what was right. When it was almost time to stop working, the man found more men standing around with nothing to do. So the man invited the men to work in his vineyard. He agreed to pay them what was right. At the end of the day, all the men who worked in the vineyard came to the man to be paid. First, the landowner paid the men who had not been working very long. The men who had been working all day got their pay last. The man gave each worker a silver coin. The workers who had worked all day saw that the men who had only worked for a little while received a silver coin, so they thought they would be paid more. They did more work, after all. But when it was their turn to be paid, the man gave them 1 silver coin too. The workers were not happy. "We worked much longer than these men, and you paid them the same as us," they complained. The man who owned the vineyard said to them, "I was fair with you. I gave you what I said I would give you. Are you upset because I am generous with my money?" Jesus finished his story by saying, "So those people who are last now will be first, and those who are first now will be last." Jesus told a story to teach people about God. God loves us and gives us good gifts. No one can earn a gift. Everyone sins or disobeys God, so everyone deserves to be punished. But God gave a good gift, his Son, Jesus. People who trust in Jesus will live with God forever.
That was a great video. Let's use some Bible bucks to talk about the parable. Ready? What is a vineyard? Yes, it is a farm where luscious grapes grow. Rocco, Pearl, and Joey, you have a vineyard in your very own backyard. Did the owner hire workers just one time? Right, Sam. He hired workers several times that day. And who did the man pay first? Madeline, you got that one. It was the one who came to work last. Were the workers who worked all day paid more? Oh, Molly and Wyatt, you got that one. No, everyone got paid the same. Generous, what does that word mean? Well, I think you know. It means when you give more sometimes than you have, and it's when someone gets more than what they deserve. So was the vineyard owner a generous man? Gunnar, you're right. Yes, he certainly was. Well, just like the landowner, God is also generous and he's good too. How is he good and generous? Well, number one, he gave us Jesus who takes away all of our sin, the bad stuff that we think and say and do. He is always with us wherever we go, and one day he'll take us to heaven to live with him forever. So the vineyard owner paid many of the workers who only worked a few hours a full day's pay. And he paid those workers more than they deserved. God also gives us more than what we deserve through Jesus. He gives us really good gifts too, no matter how hard we work. Jesus wants us to believe in him and to love him, and then he will show us how we can serve him. You know, the very first line in our story, Matthew 20, verse 1, says that this parable shows us something very important about the kingdom of heaven and about the generous King of heaven. And here it is. You can be a young child who lives your whole life from the very beginning, believing in God and walking with Jesus, and you'll go to heaven when you die because God has been generous to all who put their trust in him. Or you can be old and at the very end of your life and only have walked with Jesus for a short time, and you can still go to heaven because God has been generous to all who put their trust in him. Listen to this song because it helps to hear that message again.
There once was a man who owned a vineyard and needed some men to work very hard. He hired some men early in the day and told them a denarius would be their pay. And every few hours he hired more men, telling them the same again and again. Then in the evening he gave them their wage, but the ones who came early expressed outrage. We worked harder than anyone here. Aren't you being just a bit unfair? I'm not being unfair to you. A denarius was what you agreed to. You agreed to that. Now take your pay and go, even though you think it's low. For I'll be gracious to whom I want. I'll be generous even though you aren't. For many are victims of circumstance, and hiring you early was a matter of chance. There are Christians who live quite a long time, laboring all day, taking care of the vine. But some get saved after they are old, or live a short while after entering the fold. But nonetheless, on Judgment Day, both may end up receiving the same exact pay. For the point is not simply doing his biz, but rather revealing how gracious he is. Denarius. A denarius.
Okay, Creation Kids, the next time you eat some grapes, think about the parable of the vineyard workers and how it's like the kingdom of heaven. Check out the resources on our website too, so that you'll have an activity page and a coloring page to go with this lesson. See you next time, Creation Kids, and remember, God loves you. Bye.